Hello, English learners. Welcome to a new podcast episode here on Story Orbit N. I'm Jessica.
And I'm Tom. Welcome back. We are super excited because today's topic is one of my favorites. We're talking about travel, airports, hotels, and some hilarious travel stories too. So if you love traveling or you want to learn English for your next trip, this is going to be perfect.
Absolutely. Travel English is so useful because if you go on vacation or even a business trip, you will probably need to speak English at the airport, the hotel, restaurants, everywhere. So today, we'll give you lots of vocabulary, expressions, and tips. And I promise it won't be boring because we're also sharing some funny personal experiences.
Oh, yes, I have one story that is so embarrassing, I can't believe I'm going to tell it. But before that, let's start with airports because that's where every trip usually begins, right? So, Jessica, when was the last time you traveled by plane?
Let me think. The last time I traveled was last summer. I went to Italy, and oh my goodness, the airport was so crowded. That's a good word, by the way, crowded. It means when there are too many people in one place. For example, you can say, the airport is crowded, or the beach is crowded in summer. Basically, there's no space because there are too many people.
Exactly, and airports are almost always crowded. And another important word for airports is check in. Do you know this word? Check in is when you go to the airline counter or use a machine to get your boarding pass and drop off your luggage. Let me give an example. You can say, I need to check in for my flight, or I already checked in online. So, Jessica, do you prefer checking in online or at the counter?
Online, 100%. It's so much easier because you can choose your seat in advance and you avoid waiting in a long line. Oh, line is another good word. In British English, they usually say queue. So in American English, you say, I'm waiting in line. In British English, I'm waiting in a queue. Tom, which one do you use?
I usually say lime because I'm used to American English. But I remember once I was in London and someone told me, Excuse me, are you in the queue? And for a second I was like, What queue? I didn't know they meant the line. So be careful with that difference. And speaking of lines, have you ever been in those crazy security lines where it feels like you're walking for hours?
Oh, yes, so many times. Actually, that reminds me of something funny. One time I was in security and I forgot I had a giant bottle of shampoo in my carry on bag. And the security officer was like, Excuse me, you can't take this. And I was so embarrassed because it was like a family sized bottle. So, tip for everyone listening, remember the 100 milliliter rule for liquids in your hand luggage. And by the way, carry on means the small bag you take with you on the plane. Sometimes people also say hand luggage or cabin bag.
That's such an important tip. And another expression you hear a lot in airports is boarding gate. That's the place where you wait to get on the plane. So you might hear an announcement like, Flight 24 to New York is now boarding at gate 12. Jessica, do you ever run to the gate at the last minute?
Oh my gosh, yes! One time I almost missed my flight because I was eating a sandwich and didn't hear the announcement. Suddenly, I looked at the screen and it said, Final call. And that's another phrase for you guys. Final call or last call means this is your last chance to board the plane. If you miss it, the plane leaves without you. So imagine me running through the airport with a sandwich in my hand like a crazy person.
Ha ha ha. That's a great image. And while we're talking about funny situations, I have one from when I was flying to Spain. So I was at the check-in counter and the lady asked me, Do you have any bags to check? And I thought she said, Do you have any bugs to check? So I was like, Bugs? Why would I have bugs? And she looked at me like I was insane. So yeah, be careful with similar sounds. Bags and bugs are not the same thing.
Oh, that's hilarious. And it's a great example of why pronunciation is so important. Actually, let's pause here and teach a bit. The word bag has a short vowel sound like cat, but bug has a different vowel, like cup. So bag, bug. If you mix them up, you might confuse people. Tom, do you have another example like that?
Sure. Think about seat and sit. If you say, Can I sit in your seat? That's correct. But if you say, Can I sit in your sit? That makes no sense. So pay attention to those little differences. And speaking of seats, do you prefer a window seat or an aisle seat, Jessica?
Window seat every time. I love looking at the clouds. And there's another word, aisle. Aisle is the space between the seats on a plane or in a feeder. The letter S is silent. That's a tricky word because of the silent letter.
Silent letters are everywhere in English. Okay, let's move on to hotels because that's the next big thing when you travel. Jessica, What's the first thing you do when you arrive at a hotel?
Check-in, of course. Same word we use for the airport, but here it means when you go to the reception desk to get your room key. And here's a useful phrase for you guys. I have a reservation. You will need this when you check in. So you say, hello, I have a reservation under the name Jessica Brown. Tom, do you usually book hotels online?
Yes, I always use apps because it's faster. Oh, and books is a great verb here. It doesn't mean to read a book, it means to make a reservation. So you can book a hotel, book a table at a restaurant, book a flight. For example, I booked a hotel in Paris last night. Easy, right?
Super easy. And another important word is room service. That's when the hotel brings food to your room. I never use it because it's usually expensive. Do you ever use room service, Tom?
Once when I was sick. But yeah, it's crazy expensive. And speaking of funny hotel stories, I have one. So I was in Germany and I stayed at this hotel where the shower was literally in the middle of the room. No wall, no curtain, nothing. So when I turned on the water, everything got wet, including the bed. I was like, what is this design?
Oh my gosh, that sounds terrible. I once stayed in a hotel where they forgot to put towels in the bathroom, so I had to call reception and say, excuse me, can I have some towels, please? And here's another useful phrase. Excuse me, can I have... You can use it for almost anything. For example, excuse me, can I have a menu? Or excuse me, can I have an extra pillow? Very polite and very useful.
Politeness is key when traveling. People are more helpful if you are polite. And here's another common situation. When something is wrong with your room. Maybe the air conditioner doesn't work or the Wi-Fi is broken. You can say, there seems to be a problem with the air conditioning. Or, the Wi-Fi isn't working. Jessica, have you ever had a Wi-Fi nightmare in a hotel?
Oh, yes, many times. And it's always when you need to work. One time, the Wi Fi was so bad, I had to sit in the hallway to send emails, so I was just sitting on the carpet outside my door like a lost tourist. And that's another phrase, by the way, lost tourist. It means someone who looks very confused in a new place. Tom, have you ever gotten lost while traveling?
Many times. I got lost in Tokyo once because the streets had no names I could read. So I learned a very useful sentence. Excuse me, how do I get to? You can say, excuse me, how do I get to the train station? Or, excuse me, how do I get to Main Street? This is a lifesaver when you're in a new city.
Yes, that's a great one. And here's another tip. Always learn a few words in the local language too. People really appreciate it. But English is usually the backup language everywhere, so that's why learning travel English is super important.
That is so true. I always try to learn at least hello and thank you in the local language, but English is usually what saves me. Okay, so let's talk about another very common situation, ordering food. This can happen in airports, on the plane, or in a hotel restaurant. So Jessica, what's a polite way to order food in English?
Great question. The most common way is to say, I would like, for example, I would like a coffee, please. Or, I would like the chicken salad. This sounds polite and natural. Another way is, can I have a glass of water, please? These two phrases will help you almost anywhere.
Yes, and please don't just say, give me coffee. That sounds rude. Always add please. So, I would like a coffee, please, or can I have a coffee, please? Very simple, but very important. And here's another travel expression, to go, or for here. If you order food in the airport, they might ask, is that for here or to go? That means, do you want to eat here or take it away? So Jessica, are you a to-go person or a for-here person?
Definitely to go, because I'm always running to the gate. But that's a good point. In British English, they say takeaways instead of to go. So in the UK, you might hear, do you want that to eat in or takeaway? And in the US, it's for here or to go. Small difference, but important to know.
And speaking of food, have you ever tried the meals on the plane? Some people love them, some people hate them. I think they're okay, but not amazing. And here's a fun phrase for everyone listening, airplane food. People often make jokes about airplane food. It's like a classic comedy topic. Jessica, what's your opinion?
Honestly, I think airplane food has improved a lot. The one time I ordered vegetarian and they gave me just a salad and a piece of bread. I was starving. And that's a good word, starving. It means very, very hungry. So you can say, I'm starving, let's eat. It's more dramatic than just saying, I'm hungry. But don't use it if you only feel a little hungry because it sounds like you haven't eaten all day.
Yes, good point. And here's a grammar tip connected to food. When you order, remember, don't say I want a coffee. It's not wrong, but it can sound a little direct. I would like is better because it's more polite. And in English, being polite is important, especially with strangers. So practice that structure. I would like a sandwich. I would like some water. I would like a seat by the windows. Easy and very useful.
Okay, let's move to another travel topic, transportation after you arrive. So imagine you just landed in New York. You go outside the airport. What do you say if you want a taxi?
Good question. The easiest way is just to say, taxi, please. Or, can you call me a taxi, please? And these days, of course, many people use apps like Uber or Lyft. So you can say, I'll call an Uber. And here's a nice travel tip. Always check the address before you get in the car. One time I told a driver the wrong hotel name, and I ended up on the other side of the city.
Oh no! That happened to me once too. I said Hilton and the driver took me to the wrong Hilton hotel. There were 3 in the city, so now I always show the address on my phone. And here's another phrase that's good for taxis. How much is it to go to? For example, how much is it to go to Times Square? That's very useful if you want to know the price before you start.
Definitely. And let's teach another word. Fare. Fare means the price you pay for transportation, like a taxi fare, a bus fare, a train fare. For example, the taxi fare was $20. Or, what's the bus fare to the airport?
Yes, and sometimes you also hear tip. That's the extra money you give for good service. In the US, you usually tip taxi drivers about 10 to 15%. So if the fare is $20, you give $2 or $3 as a tip. And in restaurants, you usually tip more, like 15 to 20%. Tom, do you remember the first time you had to tip?
Yes. I was in New York and the bill was $50. I didn't know about tipping, so I just left $1. The waiter looked at me like I was the worst person ever. Later, my friend explained it to me, and I felt so bad. So now I always tip correctly. That's another important cultural point.
Okay, now I want to share another funny story because this still makes me laugh. I was staying in a small hotel in Paris, and the elevator was so tiny I could barely fit with my suitcase. So I got in, and then the elevator stopped between floors. I was stuck for 20 minutes! And my phone didn't have signal. Finally, the hotel manager opened the door, and I had to climb out. I felt like an action movie star. Here's another useful word, review. A review is an opinion someone writes about a product, service, or place. So before you book a hotel, always read the reviews. For example, this hotel has great reviews, or I wrote a review after my stay.
Exactly. And here's another useful expression for travel, fully booked. That means there are no rooms available. So if you call a hotel and they say, sorry, we are fully booked, it means they have no free rooms. So Jessica, have you ever arrived at a hotel and they didn't have your reservation?
Yes, once in Rome. I arrived late at night, super tired, and the receptionist said, "We don't have your reservation." I almost cried. But luckily, I had the confirmation email, so everything was okay in the end. That's another tip. Always keep the confirmation email or take a screenshot. It can save your life.
Great advice. Now, let's talk about something many travelers fear, lost luggage. Jessica, has the airline ever lost your luggage?
Ugh, yes, it happened last year. I arrived in Lisbon, but my suitcase didn't. I had only my carry-on bag, so I wore the same jeans for 3 days. The airline finally delivered my suitcase, but it was stressful. So another tip, always pack some clothes in your carry-on just in case. And by the way, the word luggage is uncountable. So you say, "Where is my luggage?" Not luggages. If you want to count, you say, "How many bags do you have?" Or, "I have 2 suitcases."
Yes, and that's a very common mistake for English learners. Remember, luggage is like furniture or information, you don't put a S at the end. And another interesting point, in American English people say baggage too. So baggage and luggage mean the same thing.
Okay, let's switch to grammar for a minute because this is an English learning podcast after all. Tom, when we talk about travel experiences, what tense do we use?
Great question. We usually use the present perfect tense. For example, I have been to Italy. I have visited London 3 times. We use this tense to talk about experiences in our life when a time is not specific. For example, have you ever been to New York? That's a question using present perfect. Jessica, what's your answer?
Yes, I have been to New York. And here's the structure for everyone. Have or has plus the past participle. For example, I have seen the Eiffel Tower. She has eaten sushi. And the question form is, Have you ever? For example, have you ever traveled by train? Tom, have you ever traveled by train in Japan?
Yes, and the trains in Japan are amazing. Very fast and always on time. So here's a quick practice for our listeners. Repeat after me. I have visited London. I have eaten Italian pizza. I have stayed in a five-star hotel. Great job!
Nice. And remember, if you save the time, like last year or yesterday, you use past simple, not present perfect. So you say, I went to Paris last year, not I have gone to Paris last year. That's a common mistake.
Good point. Okay, we are almost out of time, but before we finish, let's share one last set of useful phrases for emergencies. Because things happen when you travel. For example, what do you say if you lose your passport?
Oh no, that's the worst. You can say, I have lost my passport. Or, can you help me? I have lost my passport. And if you meet the police, you can say, where is the nearest police station? If you need a doctor, you can say, I need a doctor, please. Or, is there a hospital nearby? Very useful if you ever have an emergency.
Yes. And here's one for the pharmacy. You can say, I need something for a headache. Or, do you have medicine for a cold? These little sentences can really help when you don't feel well.
Perfect. Okay, I think we've covered so many things today. We talked about airports like check in, boarding gate, carry on, and final call. We learned hotel vocabulary like reservation, room service, and fully booked. You also learned how to order food politely with I would like and can I have, and useful questions like how much is it to go to. We explained tricky words like crowded, aisle, fare, tip, and even emergency phrases like I've lost my passport. Oh, and don't forget the grammar. We practiced the present perfect tense for travel experiences. This was a really fun episode.
Absolutely. And to our listeners, we hope this helps you feel more confident when you travel. Practice these phrases, listen to this episode again, and maybe even write them down.
Yes, repetition is the key. And next time you go on a trip, try using some of these expressions. You'll sound supernatural and polite.
Okay, let's say goodbye. Thank you for listening to Story Orbit In. We'll be back with another fun episode soon.
Before you go, we want to know something. Are you planning a new vacation? Or maybe you've just traveled recently. Tell us about your favorite travel experience or a funny story. We'd love to hear from you.
Bye, everyone. Safe travels and keep learning English.